She'll never tell you this, but she can feel it. She knows when you've traded your soul for her attention. She knows when you've built your life around her instead of your purpose. And the moment she feels it, respect dies. Desire fades. You go from being the man she admired to the man she tolerates. This is where most men fall. They abandon their principles, their mission, their very identity, just to keep her close. They call it love. They tell themselves it's devotion, but it's not love, it's surrender. And a Stoic? A real Stoic never surrenders himself. If you want to know what separates men who are respected, desired, and unshakable from those who are used, discarded, and forgotten, stay here, because I'm about to reveal 10 things a real Stoic will never do with women. And once you understand them, you'll never look at relationships the same way again. 1. Chase her like your happiness depends on it. If you're a real Stoic, you'll never do this. You'll never chase a woman like your happiness depends on her, because the moment you do, you've already surrendered the one thing a Stoic guards above all else: your sovereignty. Look around today. Most men have been conditioned to make women the prize. To live like their worth only exists if it's validated by a romantic partner. They compete, they overextend, they bend their schedules, their principles, and their entire lives just for a chance at her attention. And when they get that attention, they call it love. But let's be honest, it's not love, it's addiction. And addiction is slavery. Stoicism teaches us that happiness isn't found in people, possessions, or outcomes. It's found in our virtue and our control of self. When you chase a woman with the energy of desperation, you're telling yourself and her, "You're my source of happiness. You're my anchor. You're my reason to feel alive." But what happens when that source is taken away? You collapse. That's why chasing is so dangerous. It makes your emotional state dependent on someone else's behavior, someone who doesn't owe you anything. You hand over your power and pray she treats it well. The Stoic does the opposite. He doesn't reject women or relationships, but he refuses to chain his happiness to them. He approaches love as an addition to his life, not the foundation of it. Men chase for one reason. They think it works. They think if they buy enough gifts, send enough messages, and rearrange enough of their lives, she'll eventually reward them with affection. And sometimes she does. But here's the cold truth. She doesn't respect the man who sacrifices himself for her approval. She uses him. She tolerates him. She might even enjoy his presence. But she does not crave him. Because craving comes from polarity, from the tension between two sovereign people who choose each other freely, not from one man begging for crumbs while she decides how much he's worth. If you're truly Stoic, you flip this script entirely. You don't chase, you attract. You don't beg, you build. You don't make her your source of joy. You make yourself unshakable, so your joy radiates with or without her. And that kind of energy, it pulls women toward you, because when a man doesn't need her, when he stands firm in who he is, she feels something most women rarely feel from men: safety. Safety not in the sense of protection from harm, but in the sense of emotional grounding. She knows she can't control you. She knows you won't lose yourself in her. And that paradoxically makes her want you more. Here's a reality most men don't want to face. If you're chasing a woman, it's not because you love her. It's because you fear losing her. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. Fear of not being wanted. And fear-driven action always leads to misery. The Stoic says, "I want her, but I do not need her. I will open my hand, not clench my fist. If she stays, good. If she leaves, also good." That's strength. That's freedom. If you feel like you're always chasing, texting first, planning everything, trying to win her back after she pulls away, stop. Ask yourself, would I still respect myself if I saw myself from the outside? Am I acting like a man or like a boy begging for love? Then shift your focus. Build yourself. your health, your mind, your purpose. Expand your world, friends, passions, pursuits that don't revolve around her. Learn to walk away, not as a tactic, but as a lifestyle. Because when you no longer chase, you send a powerful message. My happiness is mine. You can join me in it, but you will never own it. The day you stop chasing women like your happiness depends on them is the day you become the man they can't stop thinking about. Not because you played a game, not because you manipulated them, but because you finally became someone no one could shake. And that's what a real Stoic does. Before we go any further, I've got something powerful waiting for you, the Attraction Handbook. This free ebook reveals simple psychological switches that can make her desire you in ways she won't even understand. Grab it now in the description or pinned comment before it's gone. 2. Lose yourself in her emotions. If you are truly Stoic, you will never do this. You will never lose yourself in a woman's emotions. And yet, this is where most men fall. They step into a relationship thinking they're steady, thinking they're unshakable, but as soon as she laughs, they feel on top of the world, and as soon as she cries, they crumble into pieces. They take her moods as their compass, her validation as their fuel, her attention as their oxygen. They don't even realize they've surrendered their emotional autonomy until it's too late. And by then, they aren't a man anymore. They're an emotional echo, bouncing back whatever she throws at them. It happens slowly, subtly. At first, it feels good, intoxicating even. You tell yourself, I care about her. I want to support her. This is what a good partner does. But the line between care and codependence blurs quickly. Before you know it, you aren't simply supporting her. You're living inside her emotional storms, letting them dictate your every move. She's upset, so you're upset. She's distant, so you spiral. She's affectionate, and suddenly you feel alive again. It's an emotional roller coaster where she controls the ride, and you're strapped in like a passenger who forgot he could walk away. But Stoicism was never about being a passenger. A Stoic is the man who owns his inner world regardless of the chaos outside. He can love a woman deeply, passionately, yet remain unshaken by her shifting tides. He does not dismiss her feelings, but he does not drown in them either. Because the moment you let her emotional state dictate yours, you've lost the only thing a Stoic truly controls, himself. And make no mistake, women can feel when you've given up that control. They can sense when you're living for their moods instead of for your own principles. At first, she might like it. She might even find comfort in knowing she can influence you so easily. But deep down, she'll lose respect for you. Because a man who loses himself in her emotions is no longer her partner. He's her puppet. If you want to see this dynamic in action, look at the men who spend their lives appeasing. They're the ones who apologize for things they didn't do just to keep the peace. They're the ones who let disrespect slide because they don't want to make things worse. They're the ones who stop chasing their own goals because her temporary happiness feels more urgent than their long-term growth. These men think they're being good partners, but in reality, they're abandoning themselves in the name of love. A Stoic never does this. He can sit with her in her pain. He can support her through her storms, but he never absorbs them as his own. He stands firm, unshaken, because his identity does not shift with her moods. He doesn't rise and fall based on her affection or approval. He remains a steady mountain, not a balloon blown around by every emotional gust of wind. And here's the paradox. When you stop losing yourself in her emotions, she'll actually feel safer with you. Because deep down, women don't want to carry the burden of your emotional state on top of their own. They want to feel that when their world is spinning, yours is still solid. They want to know they can lean on you, not collapse into you and watch you crumble under the weight. If you lose yourself in her emotions, you've already lost the relationship. You've made her feelings the god you serve, and no woman can truly love a man who has abandoned himself. But if you remain grounded, if you can love her fully without becoming her emotional shadow, then you've earned something far greater than her fleeting affection. You've earned her respect, and respect is the foundation of any real connection. 3. Compete for her attention like a boy among boys. If you are truly stoic, you will never find yourself competing for a woman's attention like some desperate boy among boys. Yet this is where so many men fail. They turn romance into a contest. They look at other men as rivals, not because they're weak, but because they've tied their entire sense of worth to whether she looks their way. They post pictures to make her jealous, dress a certain way to impress her, act out roles that aren't authentic, all because they think if they try hard enough, she'll choose them over the rest. But a Stoic doesn't compete for a woman's attention. He doesn't need to. He understands that dignity is lost the moment you reduce yourself to a performer in someone else's theater. A man who competes for her gaze has already placed himself below her, as if she were some queen handing out scraps of validation to whichever suitor grovels the best. That is not love. That is servitude. Watch men in any social setting where a beautiful woman walks in. They shift. They become louder, funnier, more animated. They compete to be noticed. They aren't men anymore. They're peacocks with plastic feathers, hoping she'll look their way. The problem? Women may enjoy the attention, but they rarely respect the men who give it so freely, because she sees it for what it is: desperation. And desperation is the opposite of attraction. Stoicism teaches us that external approval, especially approval from others, is fleeting and beyond our control. A woman's attention, like anyone else's, is hers to give and hers to withhold. When you compete for it, you're handing over your peace of mind to someone else's whims. You're turning yourself into a commodity in a market where you're willing to lower your price just to be chosen. No self-respecting man would do that. A Stoic approaches relationships differently. He doesn't try to win her attention, he gives her the chance to earn his. He doesn't shapeshift to fit her expectations. He stands as himself, grounded, confident, unshakable, and allows her to decide whether she wants to step into his world. He knows that the right woman doesn't need convincing. She doesn't need a circus performance. She will see his value because he already embodies it. And here's the truth no one wants to admit. If you have to compete for her attention, you've already lost. Because even if you win, you'll always live in fear of the next competitor. The next man who can offer more excitement, more charm, more whatever. You've tied your worth to her temporary approval. And when that approval shifts, as it always does, you'll be right back in the arena, fighting for scraps again. Women respect men who don't play that game. The man who won't compete for her gaze stands out more than the one who scrambles for it. He's not rude. He's not cold. He simply knows his worth isn't measured by whether or not she notices him. And that's the paradox. When you stop fighting for attention, you often receive more of it. This isn't about arrogance. It's about self-possession. It's about living by the Stoic principle that your value is internal, unshaken by external circumstances. You are the sun. You don't beg planets to orbit you. You simply shine, and those who recognize your light will gravitate toward it naturally. When you compete for a woman's attention, you tell her, "I need you to validate me." When you refuse to compete, you tell her, "I validate myself and you are free to join me," or not. Which one do you think earns respect? Real men, Stoic men, don't play games of status to win a woman. They don't overextend to outshine others. They build themselves. They cultivate their character, their purpose, their integrity. And in doing so, they create an energy that no competitor can fake. So the next time you feel the urge to compete for a woman's attention, stop. Ask yourself, am I acting like a man or a boy? Am I living by my principles, or am I selling myself for approval? And if the answer stings, good. That's your cue to change. Because a real Stoic knows you never compete for a woman. You simply become the man who doesn't need to. 4. Trade your values for her approval. If you are truly stoic, you will never trade your values for a woman's approval. Yet most men do it without even realizing. They meet a woman they desire, and little by little they start shaving off pieces of themselves to keep her interested. They stop doing what they believe in because she doesn't like it. They swallow their principles because they're afraid of losing her. They pretend to be someone they're not just to stay in her good graces. And when they look in the mirror months later, they don't recognize themselves. This is the slow death of a man's soul, dying by 1,000 little compromises. At first, it feels harmless. She doesn't like that you hang out with certain friends, so you stop. She doesn't like that you're focused on your work, so you ease off to give her more time. She makes fun of one of your passions, so you keep it to yourself or abandon it completely. And every time you do this, you tell yourself it's because you love her, because relationships require sacrifice, because it's no big deal. But the truth, you're not sacrificing for the relationship. You're sacrificing yourself for approval. And a man who sacrifices himself to be loved eventually loses both, the love and himself. Because here's the bitter truth. A woman might temporarily enjoy the power she gains when you trade your values for her comfort, but deep down she'll lose respect for you. And respect is the foundation of desire. Once she senses that you are willing to bend your morals, your purpose, your very identity just to keep her, she no longer sees you as a man she can trust. She sees you as a man who can be shaped, a man who stands for nothing but her approval. Stoicism teaches us that virtue, living in alignment with our principles, is the highest good. A Stoic doesn't bend his ethics for temporary pleasure. He doesn't compromise his integrity for acceptance. He knows that approval from others, especially approval purchased at the cost of his values, is empty. Yet so many men live as though approval is oxygen. They're terrified of her disapproval, terrified of making her uncomfortable, terrified of being alone. So they fold, they give in. They build a relationship on lies and self-erasure, thinking it will keep her around. But a relationship built on dishonesty, even dishonesty with yourself, is doomed to crumble. Ask yourself this: what kind of love are you actually getting if you had to abandon who you are to earn it? The Stoic doesn't play that game. He enters a relationship as a whole man, one with a code, with values, with an identity that cannot be bargained away. He is kind, but not a doormat. He is loving, but not submissive to the whims of fleeting emotions. He can compromise on logistics, but never on character. And here's the paradox. The more you hold to your values, the more respect you command. The woman who once pushed against your boundaries begins to see you as someone solid, someone unmovable, someone who cannot be manipulated. That's the type of man she truly admires, even if she resists it in the moment. When you trade your values for approval, you become addicted to her validation. You live in fear, fear of upsetting her, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as too much. And fear makes you act like a boy, not a man. But when you stand firm in who you are, you shift the power dynamic entirely. You are no longer a man begging for her acceptance. You are a man inviting her into your life, on your terms, with mutual respect at the core. So what does this look like in practice? It means saying no when no needs to be said, even if it upsets her. It means refusing to give up your purpose, your friendships, your passions, just to keep her comfortable. It means telling the truth about who you are and what you expect, even if it scares you. It means being willing to lose her before you lose yourself. Because if she can only love you when you betray yourself, she doesn't really love you. She loves the version of you she created. And you? You deserve to be loved for who you are, or not at all. The Stoic man doesn't trade his values for affection. He knows that his integrity is worth more than any approval, any relationship, any fleeting pleasure. He lives by the words of Epictetus. It is better to die of hunger having lived without grief and fear, than to live in plenty with a troubled mind. Because when you hold on to yourself, you keep your soul intact. And when you keep your soul intact, no woman, no matter how beautiful, no matter how tempting, can destroy you. 5. Make her the center of your life. If you are truly stoic, you will never make a woman the center of your life. You will never orbit around her like a planet desperate for warmth. You will never sacrifice your purpose, your ambitions, your identity, just to keep her close. Yet, this is exactly where so many men fail. They meet a woman, and slowly, without realizing it, everything begins to revolve around her. They abandon their routines, their friendships, their goals, their sense of self. They live not as men, but as satellites, spinning endlessly around the gravitational pull of her approval. At first, it feels intoxicating. She's beautiful. She's exciting. She fills your days with the kind of emotional highs you've been craving. And so you make her your priority. You text her first thing in the morning. You cancel plans for her without hesitation. You say yes to everything she wants, even when it means saying no to yourself. It feels romantic. It feels like devotion. You tell yourself, this is what love is supposed to be. But in reality, it's obsession disguised as affection. The Stoics knew better. They knew that making another person the center of your life is the fastest way to lose your peace. Because when she becomes your world, you give her the power to destroy it. Her moods dictate your emotions. Her attention becomes your lifeline. Her approval becomes your oxygen. And what happens when she pulls back, when she becomes distant, when she leaves? You collapse because you built your entire existence on a foundation that was never yours to control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." A Stoic man understands this at his core. He doesn't give away his power by building his life around something he cannot control. He can love deeply, yes, he can commit fully, but he remains grounded in his purpose, his principles, his vision for his life. Because when you live for yourself first, you are unshakable. And paradoxically, that's what makes a woman want to stay. Women don't truly want to be your entire world. They may say they do. They may enjoy the attention at first. But deep down, they crave a man who has a life bigger than them. A man with a mission. A man who doesn't need them to survive, but chooses them to share in his journey. When you abandon your purpose to make her the center of your life, you lose the very thing that drew her to you in the first place. Think of the men who have lost themselves in relationships. You know them. Maybe you've been one. They stop pursuing their passions. They drift away from their friends. They stop training, stop reading, stop building. Their identity shrinks until all that's left is her boyfriend or her husband. And then one day she looks at them and wonders, where did the man I fell for go? He didn't go anywhere. He just erased himself for her. And that erasure kills attraction. It kills respect. Because no woman can truly admire a man who abandons his own life to orbit hers. A Stoic doesn't live this way. He doesn't put his purpose on pause for romance. He doesn't make himself small so she can feel big. He stays rooted in his mission, his principles, his growth. He knows that the greatest gift he can give a woman isn't his constant availability. It's his unwavering strength, his presence, his ability to stand firm even when life gets chaotic. And here's the paradox. When you stop making her the center of your life, she actually feels safer with you. She knows she can't pull you off course with a single emotional storm. She knows that if she leaves, you won't crumble. You'll keep living, keep building, keep thriving. That kind of groundedness is magnetic. It commands respect in a way no amount of desperate devotion ever could. If you want to test this, look at your life right now. Take her out of the picture for a moment. Who are you without her? Do you still wake up with purpose? Do you still chase your goals? Do you still live by a code? Or do you feel empty, as though life loses meaning without her there? If that question makes your stomach drop, good. It means you've been giving her a role in your life she was never meant to hold. A woman can be a beautiful part of your life. She can be a partner, a supporter, a source of joy, but she can never be the reason you exist. That role belongs to your purpose, your values, your inner growth. When you give that role to her, you don't love her, you worship her. And no human being can carry the weight of being someone else's God. So don't make her your center. Make your center the thing no one can take away, your purpose, your integrity, your mastery of self. Then invite her to share that space with you, not as your reason for living, but as someone who walks beside you as you live fully. Because when you stop making her the sun, you orbit, you become the sun, you shine, you attract, you lead, and you live the way a real Stoic lives, grounded, unshakable, and free. 6. Get hooked on her highs and crushed by her lows. If you are truly Stoic, you will never allow yourself to become a prisoner of a woman's emotional roller coaster. Yet, this is where countless men lose themselves. They don't even notice it happening. One day, they're grounded, living their lives, confident in their own skin. Then they meet her. She's beautiful, intoxicating, unpredictable, and suddenly their entire emotional state is tied to how she feels about them. When she's affectionate, they're euphoric. When she's distant, they're crushed. When she praises them, they feel like gods. When she criticizes them, they spiral into self-doubt. This is one of the quietest, deadliest traps a man can fall into. Addiction to her emotional highs and devastation from her emotional lows. It feels like passion. It feels like love, but it's not. It's dependency. And dependency will hollow you out until there's nothing left of the man you were before she came along. Stoicism teaches us that peace doesn't come from controlling others or being controlled by them. Peace comes from mastering yourself. But when you get hooked on her highs, you give her the remote control to your emotions. You let her press the buttons that make you feel alive, and when she stops pressing them, you crash. This cycle is exhausting. You start living for those highs, the texts that make your heart race, the nights she's fully present and affectionate, the moments when you feel like the center of her world, and in between, you wither. You obsess over what went wrong, replay her words in your mind, search for clues in her tone, her body language, her silences. You stop being a man living his life. You become a man waiting for his next hit of emotional dopamine, and she can feel it. Even if she doesn't fully understand it, she can sense when her approval becomes your lifeline. And instead of feeling loved, she feels burdened, because no woman wants to carry the weight of a man's emotional existence. She wants a partner, not a dependent. She wants a man who can love her deeply, but doesn't collapse when she pulls away for a moment. Here's the paradox. The more you get hooked on her highs, the more erratic her behavior will become. Why? Because she knows, even subconsciously, that you'll tolerate anything just to get back to that high. She can test you, push your boundaries, pull away, and you'll still chase her because you're addicted to the version of her that makes you feel alive. A Stoic refuses this game. He can enjoy the highs. Who wouldn't? He can appreciate the intimacy, the affection, the validation, but he doesn't need it. His emotional state doesn't hinge on whether she's warm or cold, present or distant. He remains steady because his identity, his worth, his joy are not tied to her moods. That steadiness changes everything. It changes how you act when she withdraws. Instead of chasing, you observe. Instead of panicking, you stay grounded. It changes how you respond to conflict. Instead of exploding or collapsing, you hold your frame. It changes how she sees you. Instead of viewing you as an emotional dependent, she sees you as a man who can weather storms without losing himself. If you want to know whether you've fallen into this trap, ask yourself, when she pulls back, do I lose my sense of self? Do I feel like my world is falling apart when she's not giving me what I want? Do I spend more time reacting to her than acting on my own purpose? If the answer is yes, you've built your emotional life on her shifting sands, and you know what happens when a storm hits shifting sands. A Stoic builds his life on rock. He can love her, he can cherish her, he can share his world with her, but he never hands her the keys to his emotional kingdom. That belongs to him alone. So how do you break free from this cycle? You create a life so full, so purpose-driven, that her highs are a bonus, not a lifeline. You strengthen your mind and body so that her criticisms can't shatter you. You cultivate a sense of self so rooted in your principles that her praise, while appreciated, doesn't define you. Love her, desire her, enjoy her highs, but never need them. Because the man who gets hooked on a woman's highs will always be crushed by her lows. But the man who stands firm through both, that man becomes unshakable and truly free. 7. Overreact when she tests you. If you are truly stoic, you will never overreact when a woman tests you. And yes, she will test you. Every woman does. Not because she's cruel or manipulative, but because testing is in her nature. It's how she learns who you are beneath the surface. It's how she figures out if the man she's with is the same one he pretends to be. But most men fail these tests miserably, not because they can't see them coming, but because they let their emotions hijack them. You know exactly how it goes. She says something sharp, something designed to get under your skin. Maybe she pushes a boundary. Maybe she flirts with someone in front of you to see how you'll react. Maybe she criticizes you, not because she hates you, but because she wants to see if you'll collapse or hold your ground. And what do most men do? They explode, they argue, they yell, they spiral into defensiveness, trying desperately to prove themselves in the heat of the moment. Or they do the opposite. They shut down completely, sulking, withdrawing, punishing her with cold silence because they don't know how else to respond. Both reactions fail the test. Why? Because they show her that you can be controlled. They show her that your emotions are on a leash she can tug whenever she wants. And a man whose emotions are that easily manipulated is a man who cannot be trusted to lead himself, let alone a relationship. Stoicism teaches us that the only thing truly under our control is our own mind, not the actions of others, not the opinions of the crowd, not the chaos of the outside world, only our response. So when a woman tests you, a Stoic sees it for what it is, a moment to practice mastery of himself. He doesn't take the bait. He doesn't make her little jab into an existential war. He doesn't crumble under the pressure. He breathes. He observes. He stays rooted in his frame. Here's what most men don't understand. Women test because they want to see what's real. They don't want the performance, the perfect mask you wear on dates or over text. They want to know if you're grounded or if you're just pretending. When you overreact, you answer that question for them. You're pretending. Your confidence was surface level. Your composure was conditional. The minute pressure appeared, you lost yourself. But when you don't overreact, when you stay calm, when you handle her tests with grace or humor, when you make it clear that her actions don't define your emotional state, everything changes. She sees a man who cannot be easily shaken, a man who doesn't crumble under emotional chaos, a man who can lead himself even when provoked. That doesn't mean you ignore disrespect. Being stoic doesn't mean being passive. It means addressing problems from a place of strength, not emotional chaos. If she crosses a line, you let her know calmly, clearly, and without begging. You show her that boundaries exist and that you enforce them, but you don't throw a tantrum in the process. Think of Marcus Aurelius, who wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That's the essence of Stoicism in relationships. Her test isn't what destroys you. Your reaction is. And here's the paradox. When you stop overreacting, the tests often stop too. Why? Because she realizes she can't control you. She realizes you are who you say you are, steady, grounded, unshakable. And that's when respect grows. That's when trust deepens. That's when she relaxes into you, knowing you won't lose yourself when things get difficult. If you want to know whether you've been overreacting, look at your patterns. Do you fight over little things? Do you find yourself begging for reassurance? Do you lash out when she pulls away, only to apologize later when you calm down? If so, you're failing the very test designed to reveal your strength. A Stoic man doesn't play that game. He refuses to let anyone else, even the woman he loves, decide how he feels about himself. He chooses calm over chaos, logic over impulse, groundedness over reaction. The next time she tests you, take a breath. See it for what it is. Not an attack, but an opportunity. An opportunity to prove, to her and to yourself, that you are a man in control of his emotions. Because when you stop overreacting, you don't just pass her test, you pass life's test. 8. Measure your worth by how she treats you. If you are truly Stoic, you will never measure your worth by how a woman treats you. Yet this is the silent trap that swallows men whole. They don't see it happening. They wake up one day and realize their entire sense of self is tied to her approval. How she talks to them, how much attention she gives them, how affectionate she is. When she's loving and present, they feel like kings. When she's distant or cold, they feel worthless. Their emotional state rises and falls like a tide controlled by her moods. This is how men lose themselves, slowly, invisibly, without a fight. A man who measures his worth by how a woman treats him is no longer his own. He's outsourced his value. He's put it in her hands, trusting her to handle it with care. And when she doesn't, he breaks. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it looks like bending over backward to please her. Sometimes it looks like chasing her attention when she pulls away. Sometimes it looks like obsessing over every text message, replaying every word she says, searching for meaning in the smallest gestures. But at its core, it's the same sickness. He believes her behavior defines his value. A Stoic man knows better. He knows that how others treat you, whether it's a woman, a boss, a stranger, says more about them than it does about you. He knows that worth is intrinsic. It's built from the inside out, rooted in your principles, your discipline, your purpose. It doesn't change because someone praises you, and it doesn't disappear because someone disrespects you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." The way she acts is an outside event. You can't control it. You can't predict it. You can only control how you respond. So what does this look like in real life? It means that when she's affectionate, you enjoy it, but you don't cling to it like it's oxygen. When she's cold, you don't crumble or beg. You stay rooted in who you are. When she disrespects you, you don't spiral into self-loathing. You calmly enforce your boundaries and walk away if you must. Your worth doesn't come from her treating you like a king. Your worth comes from living like one. This is where most men fail. They think a woman's love makes them valuable. They think being chosen makes them worthy. But if your worth can be given by someone, it can also be taken by them. And that's a dangerous place to live. Instead, the Stoic builds a life where his value is unquestionable, not because she validates it, but because he validates himself. He wakes up with purpose. He disciplines his body and mind. He lives by a code, whether anyone's watching or not. He knows that his value is constant, like a mountain, unshaken by the storms of her moods or the seasons of her affection. When you stop measuring your worth by how she treats you, everything changes. You stop chasing. You stop begging. You stop performing for approval. You start living as a man who is complete within himself. And paradoxically, that's when she treats you better. Because women respect men who don't need their approval to breathe. They respect men who can love them deeply, but still walk away if they're disrespected. They respect men who don't let their emotions rise and fall based on someone else's behavior. If you've been living like this, measuring your worth by her moods, it's time to cut the cord. It's time to take your value back. Not as a performance, not as a tactic to win her over, but because no man should live as a slave to anyone's approval. You are not her emotional puppet. You are not a mirror for her feelings. You are a man. And a man's worth, if he is truly stoic, is untouchable. 9. Fear her leaving more than you fear losing yourself. If you are truly stoic, you will never fear a woman leaving more than you fear losing yourself. Yet, this is the quiet tragedy of so many men. They will endure disrespect, betrayal, and even self-erasure just to avoid being left. They cling to relationships long after they've died, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of rejection, fear of facing the truth about who they are without her. And in that fear, they destroy themselves. They swallow insults to keep the peace. They compromise their values to keep her happy. They abandon their purpose, their boundaries, their very identity, all for one desperate goal. Don't let her go. But here's the paradox. The more you live like this, the more she will pull away, because no woman can truly love or respect a man who sacrifices his soul just to keep her around. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them." The thought of her leaving only destroys you because you've judged it to mean something it doesn't, that you're unworthy, unlovable, incomplete. But what if it doesn't mean any of that? What if her leaving simply means she's no longer aligned with your path? What if it's just an event? Painful, yes, but not defining. That's what a Stoic knows. A Stoic doesn't cling. He loves fully, but with an open hand, not a clenched fist. He understands that people come and go, that relationships change, that nothing external is ever truly permanent, and instead of fighting reality, he embraces it. He knows that his worth doesn't rise when she stays, and it doesn't fall when she leaves. But when you fear her leaving more than you fear losing yourself, you reverse that truth. You give her the power to define you. You say, "You are my anchor. Without you, I am nothing." And once you believe that, you will do anything to keep her, even if it means betraying the man you are supposed to be. You can see this in men everywhere, the ones who tolerate disrespect because they don't want to be single, the ones who let their dreams die because they're afraid their ambition will drive her away, the ones who live silently, resentful lives, trapped in relationships that no longer serve them, because the thought of walking away terrifies them more than living a lie. This isn't love. It's fear dressed as devotion. The Stoic does the opposite. He fears losing himself more than losing anyone else, because he knows that when you lose yourself, you lose everything. You become a hollow shell, a man who exists only to please, to serve, to survive in someone else's orbit. That's not living. That's captivity. So what does it mean to live without this fear? It means you enter relationships from a place of strength, not desperation. It means you hold your boundaries even when she pushes against them. It means you love her deeply, but you're willing to walk away if the cost of staying is your soul. And here's the irony. When you stop fearing her leaving, you become more attractive, because you radiate the energy of a man who cannot be broken. You don't grip her out of panic. You choose her out of freedom. And that's the kind of man a woman truly wants. Not a hostage, but a partner. If you've been living in this fear, ask yourself, who am I without her? If that question terrifies you, good. That means you've given her a role she was never meant to hold. The role of defining your very existence. Take it back. Build a life so full, so purpose-driven, so rooted in your principles that no relationship, no matter how beautiful, can ever cost you yourself. Because losing her might hurt, but losing yourself? That's a wound that never heals. 10. Confuse desire for dependency. If you are truly stoic, you will never confuse desire for dependency. Yet this is the subtle, devastating mistake that unravels so many men. They meet a woman who excites them, who inspires them, who lights up parts of themselves they didn't know existed, and they mistake that spark for necessity. They start believing that wanting her means they need her, that love requires dependency, that their life without her would be meaningless. And in that confusion, they destroy the very foundation of their strength. Desire is natural. It's human. The Stoics never taught us to suppress it or deny it. They taught us to observe it, to understand it, to enjoy it without becoming enslaved by it. A Stoic can look at a beautiful woman, feel the pull toward her, and still remain grounded in himself. But most men can't. They don't just want her. They build their identity around having her. They don't just enjoy her. They become addicted to her. And addiction is not love. Addiction is worship. When you confuse desire with dependency, you stop being a man who chooses. You become a man who clings. You put her on a pedestal so high that you forget you're standing at the bottom, gazing up, begging for scraps. You can't think clearly because your judgment is clouded by the fear of losing her. You can't set boundaries because you're terrified they might drive her away. You can't live fully because every moment is consumed by her. What she's thinking, what she's feeling, how she sees you. This is where men lose their power. They confuse their longing for her with the belief that they cannot exist without her. They think, if she leaves, I will break. And when you live like that, you become easy to control. You will bend. You will compromise. You will become whoever she wants because your existence now depends on her approval. But a Stoic knows better. He knows that desire is a visitor, not a master. He can want her fiercely without making her the center of his universe. He can love her deeply without needing her to validate his worth. He can enjoy the connection without believing it defines his existence. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." A Stoic doesn't crave in the way that destroys him. He doesn't mistake the thrill of desire for the anchor of necessity. He is whole before she arrives, and he will remain whole if she leaves. That's the balance most men never learn to strike. They think the only options are cold detachment or total enmeshment. But real strength lies in the middle, to love without losing yourself, to want without worshipping, to walk beside her without kneeling at her feet. If you've been confusing desire for dependency, take a hard look at your life. Ask yourself, am I with her because I choose her, or because I fear life without her? If the answer stings, good. That's your wake-up call. Because a man who needs a woman to feel alive has already surrendered the very thing that makes him attractive, his independence. Desire her, admire her, love her, but do it as a man who is full on his own, not as a man trying to fill the holes in his soul with her presence. When you stop confusing desire with dependency, you reclaim your freedom. And when you are free, you don't just become more stoic, you become unstoppable. If you take nothing else from this, take this. A Stoic never abandons himself for anyone, not for a woman, not for love, not for the fleeting comfort of approval, because the moment you make her your oxygen, you suffocate the man you were meant to be. Love her, but don't worship her. Desire her, but don't depend on her. Let her into your world, but never let her become your world. Your mission, your principles, your sense of self, these are non-negotiable. Protect them like your life depends on it, because it does. And if she leaves, if she withdraws, if she tests your resolve, you do what a real Stoic does. You stand firm. You don't chase, you don't crumble. You remain unshakable. because that's the one thing no one, not even the woman you love, should ever be able to take from you: yourself. If you've ever lost yourself in a relationship but are ready to take yourself back, comment below. I will not lose myself. Let's see how many men are ready to live as true Stoics.